Okay, well, good afternoon, everybody. The NHS is a tough place at the moment, isn't it? We've got major financial pressures, got serious workforce shortages, we're not meeting many of our overall targets. I think from the annual staff survey, the average performance has gone down in the last year, and we've just heard the social attitude survey say that approval of the NHS has sunk. And in fact, it's sunk to, there's a greater dissatisfaction with the NHS since 2007. So it's a tough environment to operate in. And one of the things that I believe most of all is that in order to be successful, you've got to get your staff with you. And the thing that really inspires staff is quality improvement. And I would add staff engagement to that as well. But quality improvement is something that unites staff. So, they say, when's the best time to plant a tree? 20 years ago. You can't go back in time, so plant one now, but we planted this tree 10 years ago. This is the WWL wheel, because what I'm going to do is, I think this is a wonderful system that's been described here, but I'm going to give you a practical example of how we sort of did this in one organisation. So it's from theory to practice. So the WWL wheel is 10 years old, and it's something that we use to, we call it a strategy on a page. The graphics have evolved as time has gone by, and there's been one change which I will come to, but it's always had patients at the heart of it, something that staff can unite around. It's had quality going around the middle of the wheel, defined as safe, effective and caring, so that's been the quality improvement. We've got our desired behaviours around the outside of the wheel, and then what we've got the 4 Ps, so we've got patients, people, performance and partnership, and for each of those Ps there is a sort of overarching objective. So for example, in performance, we want to be in the top 10% for everything we do. So apart from the graphics, this has been substantially the same with the exception of the bottom right hand corner, the partnership. Where we were 10 years ago was in a world of competition, and that was what we were all about, trying to actually use quality improvement so that patients would use our services rather than our nasty neighbours over there in Bolton with David. The world is different now, and we now work in partnership with our local authority and indeed with our colleagues in Bolton. We see partnership as being the way forward. So, this is a slide which was used by Jeremy Hunt of all people when he came to visit Wigan last year. And it's a really interesting slide because what it shows in red is the number of passenger deaths per year since 1974. So you can see back in 1974 the figure was around about 2,000 deaths per year. The figure now is about 500 deaths per year. And meanwhile the blue is the number of millions of passenger miles. So back in 74 there was about 500 million passenger miles. Now there's about 3,000 million passenger miles. So the mileage has gone up 6-fold and the death rate has come down by 75%. Now why is that? It's because there's a system. Every single time somebody dies in a plane crash, there is the most exhaustive process you can imagine to investigate why and put in place a system that will prevent exactly the same thing happening ever again. So everybody that's ever died in a plane crash has contributed to our safety. Now that's a system that clearly has worked, and the question is, what could a system be like for an NHS organisation? So what I'm really going to talk about is the system that we've got, which is called Quality Champions, which we introduced in 2012, which is the Olympic year, and you can see these badges have got silver, gold and bronze. The way this works is that we invite people to do quality improvement training. And in the first place, the quality improvement training was conducted by Aqua, but after a while we got used to it and provide it in-house. So once you've done the training, and it's a 3-day training course, you become a quality champion and you get the bronze badge, and you wear the bronze badge with pride. But then you embark on a quality improvement project. And we've got some quite stiff rules about this. There's got to be a measurable stretching objective for the project, there's got to be a measurable baseline, and you've got to demonstrate that you've achieved the stretching objective for at least 6 months. If you do that, you get the silver badge. And the silver badge basically shows this is a quality champion who has really achieved something important. And then, as happens through conferences like this and other ones, sometimes the work that we do inside our trust gets spread elsewhere. And so for anybody that's done a project which gets adopted in another organisation, we award the gold badge. And that, believe it or not, is the system. It's as simple as that. But going back to talking about resources, when we set this up, we knew that we were quite a small organisation. So Leslie kindly described us as a large FT. Well, we're below 300 million, and we knew that we couldn't afford one of these expensive departments. So this is something that we felt we could set up and afford to run, because it's based on voluntary effort from so many individual people. Once the teams are identified and off with their work, there is a monthly meeting which all of the executive directors, all of the medical leads and all of the nursing and pathway leads attend, where the quality champions come and present to us on a rotational basis. So about every 6 months they will come and tell us about their project. And there's two objectives to that. One is for them to boast to us about how well they've done, which is wonderful, I love that. And the second is to identify any barriers or blocks, and then we've got the executive team there to help them do it. So that's how the system works. It's really expensive. These badges cost 20p each, and then of course there's the training and the administration of the scheme. So 6 years on, you can see now we've got 365 quality champions, and of those, 48 have reached that silver level. In other words, their project has demonstrated sustained success, and 18 have been adopted elsewhere. And then we've got this, oops, that wasn't going to be there. I don't know why that graph has superimposed itself, sorry about that. But anyway, you can't read behind it, but this is the list of the 198 projects. And they range from projects like reducing mortality from acute kidney injury within 3 months, down by 10%, to a project to reduce catheterization of patients, which has come down by 8%, to much more difficult to measure projects like how do you get very young children on a children's ward to give you their opinion of what they want, and stuff that can engage not necessarily clinical staff. The porters did a project to get the patient letters as accurate as possible. So those are the 198 projects that have run in the 6 years, and it's like having a great quality muscle in your organisation to have so many people engaged in quality improvement projects. And like I said, most of them do this work in their own time because it inspires them. So I've talked about the power of quality to energise people. It also brings people together. You know, NHS organisations are full of divisions and silos: medicine, surgery, nursing, doctors, executives, non-executive support staff, but everybody can agree that quality is a really worthwhile goal. So it breeds a healthy culture in the organisation. If we look at the results of that 10-year programme, our standardised mortality rate without rebasing has gone down by about 50%, deaths in hospital by about 14%, virtually eliminated MRSA and C. diff, and pressure ulcers and serious and moderate falls have also come down significantly. Those are just some of the measures, but these are the types of programmes that people have worked on as part of the Quality Champions. And some of this stuff that we did has won us a number of awards, particularly back in 2014. We've got a low rate of sickness absence. We're rated overall good by the CQC. We've been high performing on A&E for the last 4 years. Struggling at the moment, I have to say. We're still though in the top 10% for cancer 18 weeks and friends and family. For 3 years in a row we're in the cleanest hospital in the NHS, and believe it or not, we even made a healthy finance. Now all of this is linked to the work that you've heard Professor Michael West doing, that what he says is that if you've got a healthy organisational culture, you get good HR results, like reduced sickness absence, but you also get reduced mortality, and it's linked to better overall performance, and it's even linked to better overall finances. So I think it's really important not just to see quality improvement in its own right, but to see it as part of the culture of the organisation. Now, we wanted to talk about the finances of this, and you know, most people believe that pretty much everything that you do that improves efficiency and quality also reduces costs, and I know you heard quite a bit about it this morning. But what we wanted to do was to assess the benefits of the quality improvement project. So we identified a senior finance figure within the organisation who began to have a look at some of the projects. And some are really difficult to assess. So for example, the one that got the how you get opinions from 3-year-olds on what they want on a ward, it's very difficult to assess any financial benefits from that. But out of the nearly 200, about 90 projects were assessed, and we've been able to produce some reasonably clear views as a result of that. So in the 2 years ago, the value of the projects was about £2 million. Last year it looks like being £1.5 million. And you can see that it's coding, efficiency, reduced length of stay, reduced harm, clinical efficiency, and reduction in contract penalties as well. So there's a number of ways in which we can do this. But this has been very important to me because I'm sure all the organisations you work in every year go through an annual cost-cutting round, and people say, "Well, come on, this quality stuff, it's a bit of pink and fluffy. We can afford to get rid of that, can't we?" Well, no, you can't, because actually we spend a tiny amount of money on quality improvement, and those are just the benefits that we can measure. That's only from about half of the projects. And of the ones that haven't got financial benefits, they've got huge benefits of different types as well. Two little examples of this. One of them quite a small one. So babies using antibiotics for too long. So we had a quality improvement project which was based on the fact that antibiotics should be stopped at 36 hours old for neonates. And we looked into it and we found that it was all about getting the blood cultures back in time. So we improved the transportation, the reporting process, which means that the children were able to come off the antibiotics quicker, so less exposure to drugs, earlier discharge, and reduce cost of medications. So the value of that scheme was £20,000. Okay, not a huge amount of money, but don't forget we've got 198 of these schemes going at the same time. So when we look at the cost of undertaking these projects, you can see here the money that we spend on the quality team, you can see the money that we spend on the celebration days, you can see what we spend on staff time and on consumables. So in total we're about 250,000 is what we spend on quality. And then you can see that benefits. So at the very least £1.5 million a year. And my wonderful finance man managed to demonstrate this by translating those savings into the equivalent of nurses. But when my nurse director saw this, she was horrified. She said, "Well, why are these nurses all waving guns?" Well, you know, hypodermic needles. I think they meant to be. But, you know, there you go. That's a real demonstration of the financial business case for quality improvement. But I also wanted to reflect on the weaknesses, and I think this document that you've just looked at now, where you can self-assess as to where you are as an organisation, is a very sensible and practical way of doing that. So one of our weaknesses is, if this will work for me, it's frozen for the moment. Will it work for me? Oh no, it's coming. For some reason that slide's gone blank. Can I just give you my...
Yes, indeed.
I'll just go back to my prompt here. So one of the weaknesses is that we've got 400 people trained as quality champions. That means that 4,100 people are not trained as quality champions. It also puts quality improvement into a silo. Quality improvement and general management are not the same functions, and that is a bit of a problem. And we don't actually performance manage quality improvement. We allow people to do it, and we encourage and thank them and appreciate them, but we don't actually chase them up and nag them all the time. And quite often the people that are engaged in the quality improvement have got really busy jobs. So their work is often crowded out by operational workload pressures. And I think that we've got this constant difficulty of justifying the investment in something that looks nice when we've got such a long period of financial austerity, and we are declining in our performance in A&E, and some people will say, shouldn't you be putting this effort into performance improvement rather than quality improvement? And I think if you can actually align the two, quality improvement and finance improvement together, you'd have a really great answer. So I'll try and move on to unpredictable what's going to happen with this now. Right. So this is a summary of the key messages that we have been doing this now since 10 years, and that's what's encapsulated in the wheel. The Quality Champions programme has been going on for 6 years now, and one of the things that I really want to emphasise is it's not just about quality improvement, it's about the culture of the organisation and the way that leads to better performance against other metrics. And the evidence I've shown you that quality actually saves cost, but I've also pointed to some of the weaknesses, and I think this document that Aqua have come up with is going to help us to think about how we can tackle that. So I just wanted to finish by telling you a little story that tries to illustrate the culture of the organisation. And this is a story from, it's just over a year ago now, and we had a lady on one of our wards, Mrs. Marsh, who sadly was dying from cancer. And she knew it, and the staff knew it. And the nursing staff one morning, they asked Mrs. Marsh, is there anything that we can do for you? Is there any wishes that you have? And Mrs. Marsh said, well, actually there really is. I would really like to be able to say a last goodbye to Bronwyn. Now, Bronwyn turned out to be a racehorse. And this is where you come to the wonderful quality of the NHS and its compassionate care. The staff could have said, don't be ridiculous. You're dying, you can't bring a horse into a hospital. But they didn't take that attitude. They thought carefully about how they could do this. And they thought, well, if we can get the family to bring the horse in a horse box to the car park next to the hospital, we can wheel Mrs. Marsh in her bed and we can bring them together. And they did a risk assessment and they did exactly that. And what happened was this remarkable picture here, which you may remember, some of you, because when Bronwyn, the racehorse, saw Mrs. Marsh, who had trained Bronwyn for 24 years, the horse pretty much nuzzled her face, more or less sort of kissed her on the face. And this photograph, which again, I'm sorry about my slides, they've not really come out as well as they should, but the full slide shows the picture of the nurse, but it's got all the symbolism. You've got the ambulance, you've got the nurse, you've got the patient, the horse, you can just see the patient's daughter holding the, and it's all there in a picture. It tells the whole story of the greatest part of the NHS, it's compassion. And of course this went round the world because with the permission of Mrs. Marsh, we put this onto social media. And because it's such a perfect picture, it was viewed over 50 million times on Facebook. And I'm told that that's the most viewed image anywhere. What it also does is it reinforces that compassion, quality improvement and healthy culture go together. So thank you, that's the end of my presentation. I'd be happy to take any questions.